hiring top talent, or spotting trends before they happen. And now, the United States Postal Service can give your business a new advantage. Introducing USPS Ground Advantage. Reliable and affordable 2 to 5 day package shipping. It's the advantage you need at the price you want. Get the Ground Advantage at USPS.com/advantage. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America.
Happy 62nd birthday, Granddad.
Thanks, sweetheart.
I got you this.
A mug. Oh, thank you. What does it say? Beware, if you are 60 or older, you may be at increased risk of hospitalization from RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, compared to adults younger than 60.
Not all dangers come with warning labels. Talk to your pharmacist or doctor about getting vaccinated against RSV today. Learn more at bewareofrsv.com. Brought to you by Pfizer.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6812. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6812. That's 800-575-6812. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Let's take a moment to appreciate our sweet children, loving grandparents, and eternal soulmates. Now let's use them to save money on wireless. Because with the Straight Talk Silver Plan, you get 4 lines for just $25 a month with unlimited data and no contracts. So add those human pawns, loved ones, and save money. Thanks, kids. You're finally worth it. Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart.
Get 4 lines on Silver Unlimited for $25 per line per month, plus taxes and fees. For data management practices and additional terms, visit straighttalk.com.
UCSF Sports Medicine Center is dedicated to treating every type of athlete, from kids to adults, amateurs to elite professionals. As one of the best orthopedic programs in the nation, UCSF has programs to optimize an athlete's performance and the latest advancements to treat the most complex sports injuries. With locations throughout the Bay Area, now including Marin, Walnut Creek, and Redwood Shores, it's even easier to make an appointment today. Visit ucsfhealth.org so you can get cleared to play. UCSF Health, redefining possible.
Doors and loading dock equipment are a crucial part of your business, and one you probably don't think much about until they break. A broken door or dock leveler can be a real security threat, along with disturbing the flow of goods in your business. Luckily, RNS is here for all your commercial door, dock, and gate needs. From overhead doors and security shutters to fire-rated and personnel doors, RNS can provide your business with safety and security. Call 800-FIX-A-DOOR to schedule a free estimate or visit rsdoors.com. RNS Doors. Look for the red truck.
I'm telling you that fame and fortune are not what they're cracked up to be. Hi, this is Lon Solomon, and Madonna said that. What's interesting is that people will sacrifice their integrity, their honor, and their reputation to get the very fame and fortune that Madonna was talking about. Jesus comments on this in the Bible, however. He said, "What good is it if a person gains the whole world and loses their own soul?" Instead, Jesus calls us to a higher way of living. He calls us to live for Him and to live for eternity, where everything we're living for is everything it's cracked up to be and more. Why not join Him? Not a sermon, just a thought.
For more information, check out our website, notasermon.com. That's notasermon.com.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just 1 dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Walking into the building for the first time after the shooting, it was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM at HD1 San Francisco. An Odyssey station.
What is going on, Bay Area? Football season is upon us. The National Football League is... the year where for the next 6 months, every single Monday, every single week, we are going to have football to react to. And there's such an anticipation built around this season, specifically for the 2023 San Francisco 49ers. And so I'm curious, just off the bat, what gets you excited about this team? What gets you excited about this season? Is it the Super Bowl aspirations? Is it the question marks that we're going to get into? Is it the matchups that we're going to dive deep into over the next 2 hours? What is it that has you excited about this football season as it relates to the Niners?
Yeah, I think that every football fan, no matter what team is your team, what area you're in, you always, right now, you're optimistic. Last week, Detroit's optimistic that they can beat Kansas City. And a lot of people in Kansas City said, no way this is going to happen. We don't got Kelsey, but it's okay. We got Mahomes. You don't think the city of Detroit's thinking, oh, my God, we just got past, every year you open up, you say, okay, you circle a game and say, we have a chance, but this is probably a loss. Every single player. Don't think that the Niners, don't think that every guy on every single team, they look at a list and they say, okay, this is a tough game. This is a game we might lose. This is a game we should win. And coaches do that. Everyone does that. In Detroit right now, they're saying, this was a game that we probably should have lost on the road in Arrowhead, in Kansas City, but we won. So I think that that's how all fans are. I think that's how all players, they look at it like that. And now you're in a situation where this is the Niners. This Niner team, there's not anyone on that schedule that say, well, we're going to lose. They're looking and saying, hey, that's going to be a good matchup. This team has a chance. They're going to be a reasonable foe. And today, this is that game that everyone's looking at. You're a Niner, and you got to be like understanding that the Pittsburgh Steelers is a good team. They're well coached, but this is a game you're saying it's going to be tough, but we got a chance to win. So that's what it's about. You got to be optimistic about this team because you know the players. You've seen what they did last year, one game away from the Super Bowl, and if Brock Purdy didn't get hurt, a lot of people think they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and look, I think that word of the day, optimism, is absolutely nail on the head because for this 49ers team, the way I feel about them is I don't know if they're as talented as perhaps the 2019 team or even a team last year that had perhaps more depth. This is a very top-heavy 49ers group in 2023. But I do believe that in the 7th season under Kyle Shanahan, that this is the most proven San Francisco 49ers group. In 2019, they were young. They were up and coming. They had talent. They had promise. They had potential. I think all of those things also apply to this group. However, we've seen them 3 of the last 4 years make the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. And from that perspective, you're hearing Kyle Juszczyk, one of the captains of this team, one of the leaders in that locker room, talking about how it's all about getting to February. It's all about getting to the final game. And to me, that is kind of the blinders that separates this group from the ones in years past and why I think they have the most to prove, but they're also the most proven group under Kyle Shanahan.
I think that's a great point, Evan, that you look at this team, you say, hey, it's a proven group that's under Kyle Shanahan. They understand that, but there's a lot of guys that aren't here from last year. You have an offensive tackle now, and you look, he's in Denver. And McGlinchey, yes, did he struggle at times? Absolutely. But he was a guy that you knew what you're going to get. He was a guy that was one of those emotional leaders, but a guy that led by example. You knew that he was just a player's coach. He was a guy that you knew that he was just consistent. He was a pro. Going to be on time, going to show up, and he understood his flaws. So now you have a lot of guys right that's saying, hey, we've been in the playoffs. We've earned these playoffs. We've always been right there. NFC Championship game, been to a Super Bowl. Now it's time to get kicked down the door and go all the way. But there's other teams that are thinking that way, and that's why you got guys like Kyle Juszczyk and a lot of the leaders saying, hey, look, we just want to get to February. Because they know if they can get in, that's when you have your chance to make hay. That's when you have a chance to say, just get into the dance, get into the show. And that's what everyone does. Get the hay in the barn, and when playoff starts, anything can happen. But right now, it's too premature. It's about the Pittsburgh Steelers today. It's about being optimistic. I get it long term. But right now, you just got to say, we got to take one game at a time. And today, they got a tough opponent.
And we're going to dig into the X's and O's. We're going to get into the matchups. We got some game predictions. We got season predictions. We also got John Dickinson reporting live from Acrisure Stadium. That'll be at 9 o'clock, so looking forward to him. Evan Giddings and Lorenzo Neal with you here on the kickoff show, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. before the 49ers kickoff in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. It's a brand new year. Everyone's 0-0. But, Lo, when we're talking about getting off to a fast start, and you've been in those locker rooms, you know what it's like. You've had 15, 16 week ones to kind of go back on. Is there like what kind of mentality are you going into week one with, especially on the road against a tough opponent, a team that maybe not on paper you should beat, like you were talking about Kansas City. That's a team that on paper with all their boys feels like they might be able to handle a Detroit Lions team at home, even though they didn't.
Right.
This isn't a gimme game for the San Francisco 49ers. In fact, it might be one of their toughest games the entire season.
Yeah, right.
So from that perspective, is it just, all right, I want to get settled in? Is it we got to hit the ground running? What are you going into this type of tough environment? What headspace are you in?
Well, I think that Kyle Shanahan's a great head coach, and I think that he has a bunch of great assistant coaches. And I also think that when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and think about their rich tradition, the coach over there, Tomlin, I know that man, he's a good coach too. And just like the players will play for Shanahan, they'll play for Tomlin. So I think that this week, going in this week, if I put myself in as a player, going back and saying, if I was on this 49ers team or if I was on this Steelers team, both these teams, I'll tell you kind of the emotions. All week long, coach saying, Steeler week. All week, the Steelers are saying, Niner week. You have the different guys on different teams. And think about those men that are on both these teams. Think about the physicality of both these teams. So all week long, the coach's job is to say, keep them in the moment. And this week has been, hey, guys, let's be detailed. Hey, mistakes are going to kill us. It's the small things. Hey, guys, and so everybody's mind and focus, Shanahan's job and his coach's job, and just like the Steelers' job, this is a team that's a Super Bowl type of caliber team. You don't think the Steelers are saying this team is everyone's favorite to win, go to the NFC Championship. This is the top 2 teams or top 3 teams in NFC. You don't think the Niners are saying the same thing? So this is that week, man, that I would have just been at practice. Okay, boom. I would have been, hey, look, let's go. Telling the linebackers, hey, we're going to have a good day today. I'm going to butt you up. Hey, come off me. Hey, give me something. Hey, this is what this guy does. When he comes at me, they try to give me a soft shoulder. Try to give me a soft shoulder. Emulate what they're doing. I want to have my timing down. So this week would have been just about, boom, punctuality, making sure the details, hat, hands, placement, those little integral parts of this game, because that's what it's about. So that's what this week's been about. Not only in the physicality, but also just making sure you're in the right place, your hands, your hat placement, all those little things, because you're knowing that you're getting ready to go to a hostile environment. You're going to the enemy side, and you're trying to go win. So this week it was a slow, because you can't wait. It's opening week. You can't wait to the first game of the season. So I think it was just slow, methodical, but I'll tell you, a lot of preparation and a lot of attention to details and a lot of focus.
Well, a couple of quick weather updates. Right now, 69 degrees, looks cloudy. There is a chance of rain a little bit later on towards kickoff, but the 49ers got a very good chance at having a perfect condition, essentially, for week one. And I'm glad you mentioned kind of the button-up aspect of week one, because, and this is why I feel like this is going to be such a great test for the 49ers right off the bat, is I don't know if there's a more buttoned-up team than one that's coached by Mike Tomlin. And when you take a look at Kyle Shanahan versus Mike Tomlin, I think it's interesting because Kyle's done just about everything except for, of course, win the big one.
Right.
Mike Tomlin got the Super Bowl ring in his second year with Big Ben. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a place where, the head coaches, like Mike Tomlin's playoff record is 8-9. Kyle Shanahan's playoff record is 6-3. But one's got the ring, one doesn't. And I think if you're looking and examining those two guys as far as their styles, they're very different, and yet they've been effective throughout their careers.
Right.
It's hard for me to give the edge to one or the other because they do things in different ways. But to me, the one thing I do know that a Mike Tomlin-led group is going to have, or is going to give you, is nothing. As far as the details, they're not giving you inches. And that's why I feel like the 49ers, we are going to see if they are a buttoned-up group right off the bat, because they'll need to be, because I don't think this is a Pittsburgh team that's going to beat themselves.
Right. And when you look at football, we talk, and just about football, and you're a Charger fan, I love it. They've got a big game today against Miami. And just going down, and you're just talking about life and itself. Yeah. And what were some of the things that when you're talking about football, and you've been with different people, and you're in a room, or you're watching a game, what are some of the things that, that you look for? Because I like talking kind of, looking at your perspective. You've always loved sports. You've always been a fan. Sometimes it's great to get a perspective of a guy who's looking at the game, talking about the game, but just a perspective, kind of what's your perspective? Doesn't necessarily have to be the Niners, doesn't have to be any team in particular, but what are some of the things that you look for to say, hey, this team has it, or this team is going to be good, or this team, I don't like what they do? What are you looking for?
I look for uniformity. I look for a togetherness and a cohesion that, of course, you develop over the course of a 17-week regular season. But off the bat, if you're a team that's missing coverages, that, especially on something like special teams, isn't able to just play buttoned-up football, to me, that is a sign, or I'm taking notes at this point. I'm not jumping to any conclusion after one game, but I'm taking receipts. Right. And so by the end of the year, hopefully I got 16 receipts that'll tell me what type of football team that team is and why I expect the 49ers and why I said they're very proven to enter this year. If I'm looking at a team's identity, to me the 49ers are a physical football team. I think they have the potential to be a buttoned-up team because I think there's accountability at the top from the captain's positions. I also think that there is a connection between the front office and the head coach and the rest of the coaching staff that permeates throughout that team, which is different and a little more unique than the majority of NFL teams. That's why I put the 49ers in the contending group, and we'll get to some of ours from the NFC as well as the AFC in a little bit. But that's why I look at them as being a team that can go very far this season, not just because of the talent, not just because they got guys that can put up numbers, but because I believe there is a uniformity from the top to the bottom of that organization that is and has the potential to be special.
Yeah, that's great that you look at it, because it's same here. I just look at this team and just around the league. And like you said, it starts at the top. You look at some coaches are rah-rah guys. Some coaches are very, very tough. Some coaches are very discipline-oriented. They don't let guys do certain things, and they try to keep it like a military. And you know, and I don't know if that's the best way to rule. I don't know if that works. You know, Belichick, some of those guys, it works. But how long can it work? Because usually when you look at teams, and I'm like, okay, how long can you rule with fear?
Yeah.
And I was reading his book, and you know, it was just lead for God's sake. And they had two illustrations. One had a bag of money, and the other one had an axe in his hand. And the bag of money, hey, look, if you do this, I'll give you this. If you do this, if you clean your room, hey, I'll give you some money. If you take the trash out, here, I'll give you money. And that works, right? For how long? Then it's like, hey, I want more money. Hey, I need something else. And then you have the hatchet. Okay, if you don't do this, I got the hatchet. If you don't do this, you're getting this. If you don't do, and that hatchet's always in it, and really, that's fear. And how long does that work? And a lot of teams, a lot of coaches, here's a bag of money, here's the hatchet. If you don't do it, it's my way or the highway, or here's the money. And then you have the other one, the mind and the heart. If I can get the heart and you can get the mind, that's power. See, the other two is kind of control. Power is being able to get the mind and the heart. And that's what I think that Shanahan, Tomlin, these guys, yes, like you said, they coach. They're two different kind of philosophies, but they get their players to get the mind and the heart. So the guys want to do it for them. They're not in a place where it's being controlled. It's not coming from a place where, oh, you got to do this and then this, or if this, not that. So I think those two things, when I'm looking at different teams, I look at the makeup of the team, but also look at the coach. And if he's too much, hey, it's okay. You can get away with this. And here's the money. Here's this bag of money. Oh, here's the hatchet. If you don't do this, I think those two ways they're not sustainable. I love what Kyle Shanahan's done. If you watch the way that he coaches and the way that he leads, it's not from a place of control. It's a place from power. But the power is because he's humble enough to understand and let guys express themselves, but still understanding that he has a high expectation of commitment.
Yeah, and look, Kyle Shanahan to me is absolutely one of the faces of this organization, if not the face. I mean, he has been able to turn this organization from a place of desolation, 2017 to now to the point where we're talking about, is it Super Bowl this? Is it to the playoffs where we're kind of just giving them what they deserve, which is credit and respect. And I think you're right, because to me, the demeanor of a Kyle Shanahan is certainly not of a Tomlin or a Belichick. Right. He's a new age coach. But I'm curious, Lo, because, it demands, I believe in any walk of life, but especially in football, you have to be able to command your players and have their trust. As someone who has played for some great head coaches, maybe some also not great head coaches, how do you kind of know, or how are you able to wrap your mind around that is the guy that I'm going to follow into the trenches. And what he is doing is going to be the best for us, and it's going to put us in a position to win. How quickly can a head coach earn your respect and trust from that perspective?
Consistency is big. Loyalty, but consistency for a coach. You see a lot of coaches. Hey, I had the great Bill Parcells, Jim Moore, Tony Dungy, Jeff Fisher, Dick LeBeau. I've had some unbelievable, over in Baltimore, had the Harbaugh, So I've had some coaches that were tough. I had some coaches that led differently, Tony Dungy, Jeff Fisher, and then I had those sticklers. But you will buy in if your coach shows you commitment and he shows you consistency. You don't mind the coach being tough, but he's got to be consistent. There's been coaches also that I had that's been in a situation where they're like, oh, hey, okay, yeah, just go over there and make sure you do a better job here. But then they'll go to another coach, oh, this guy can't play and you watch that or you hear those things and you say, that's not a good guy. That's a snake. And guess what? Players see through that. When coaches do that and when they don't want to give you the hard truth, there's truth and then there's your truth. And sometimes you have coaches, they'll dance around or put their other coaches up to it, and you don't get to know where you're at or where you stand. And sometimes you can improve or you can either say, this is not for me. When coaches do that, they start to lose teams. So what is it for me? It's the consistency. So if you don't have consistency and you're one of those coaches that flop around and you're not really necessarily is going to pinpoint what it is, because a lot of coaches are afraid to do that, that's how I know which guy I'm going to fight for, which guy I'm going to put it on the line with consistency.
Yeah, and look, even though, and there's certainly some detractors of Kyle Shanahan and this 49ers team, there is reason to be all in on them. I think there's a reason to also maybe nitpick a couple of things here and there, and we're going to use week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers to dive into that in just a little bit. I also do want to pick your brain about Nick Bosa. Of course, the money that he got, but the type of impact that it had and potentially what it would have saved. But when we're looking at the NFC and what we're talking about in relation to Kyle Shanahan is the expectation of being a top 3 team. The 49ers, to me, are absolutely in that group. I believe right now, on paper, I would put them second behind the Philadelphia Eagles. I'd give the respect to the reigning Super Bowl runner-ups, but not, to me, there's not a chasm between them. It's the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC, it's the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. And I absolutely believe that if the 49ers meet either of those two teams in the playoffs, number one, I can't wait. Yeah. There's going to be a dogfight.
Right.
But I believe that they can beat those teams, and I believe they can represent the NFC in this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, you know what? Same church, same pew. I'm with you. I think those are the 3 best teams, and I think that you're going to see a Dak Prescott that's motivated because they're understanding that his replacement is in the building. Mm-hmm. You see kind of what happened with the trade, and so you're going to have Dak playing very, very enthused. And you look at Philadelphia and you think of the Niners. I think if you gave me those 3 teams, I'd give you the field. I'd give you the field and say, give me those 3 teams and you can have the field, because those are the 3 teams to me are the best in the NFC. I don't think the Giants yet. The Giants can run the ball. I'm not happy with the quarterback. I think he's inconsistent. You look around and think Minnesota, they have some talent, but Cousins at times can be questionable. But I look at this team and I'm going to be honest, for me right now, I would have to go Philadelphia. I think if you look at Philadelphia's running backs, but if you look at Philadelphia's what they've done in the trenches, Philadelphia might have the best defensive front collectively in the depth and what they did in the draft. You look at Philadelphia, they got better. Philadelphia they have weapons at the receiver position. They are to me the team to beat. Now, here's the deal. I do believe that the Niners are right there, and if the Niners have home field, I think that they have a better chance than playing in Philadelphia. So it's going to be just interesting how this Niner team is in position, how they do during the year, because if barring injuries, these 2 teams, I think they got a lot of similarities, and these are 2 physical teams, and I like Philadelphia, what they do and the way that they're built. They're built a lot like the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, and that's what I think is going to be fascinating about this season with the 49ers is as much as we are, of course, going to dive into the games week to week, break them down, you can't look ahead. You also have to keep in mind the big picture with this team, which is the aspiration to get back to where they were last year and get further. And I'm with you. The team that's in their way is the team that beat them and knocked them off last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. Right. So if you're not keeping pace with them, if you're not in the position to potentially grab that 1 seed and host the NFC Championship, as much as I'd like to say, it's not the end-all, be-all, but, Lo, I think it is a big deal that they are a team that hosts that final playoff game in the NFC to give them their best chance to beat that team.
It's like the Niners and the Dallas Cowboys in the early 90s when everyone knew that it was going to be a crash course. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys and the Niners playing for the NFC Championship. The winner of that was going to Super Bowl. Yeah. That was where it was at. I really believe right now the NFC is set up that way, that it's a crash course, the Niners in Philadelphia. And which team picked up that one chess piece? The Niners did it when they picked up Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Think about it flipped from Dallas to the Niners. So when you think about these two teams, I think that this is beginning to look like that. That's what my early prediction. I'm thinking these are two teams that are on a crash course to meet, barring injuries, Ed.
As far as the AFC, because they also got to measure them against the team they might have to face in the Super Bowl, who in your mind stands out as kind of the top three from the AFC? I think that the Steelers have a right to be in that conversation. I'm not quite sure that I would put them in the top third or the top three teams of guys that the Niners might be seeing in Las Vegas in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that it's great because we know that they're playing the Steelers today, and you got to say, where do they fit? I think it depends on their triggerman. How much is it dependent on this year with Purdy? How many for the last several years, even Jimmy, when he played well, what did everyone say? If the Niners had a quarterback that we wanted to run Jimmy out, Jimmy NFC Championship, Jimmy, go to Super Bowl. Everyone put the blame on who? Let's be real. Put the rat on the table, as Guru would say. It was Jimmy. So now you have a quarterback at that position that says, okay, the Niners. That's why everyone's like, you were able to run Trey Lance out of the building because people believe in Brock Purdy. So when you look at that, now let's flip that over to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pinkett. When you think about what they have now and you look at their quarterback and what he's been able to do, they've already had a good defense. They already had a pretty good, decent offense, but it's been the trigger position because in tough games, your quarterback has to make plays in order for you to win in the National Football League. It's a reason why they're giving $200 and $300 million and guaranteeing people $150 to $200 million guaranteed. That's only one position, the quarterback, because in tough times, your quarterback has to make plays. And when you ask him the question, how do you look at the Steelers? I think when you see this quarterback, the verdict is still out because the jury is still out because of the fact he didn't play great last year. But at the end of the year, when he starts to get his feet under him and he starts to learn more of the offense, you think about how he played at the end of the year and then fast forward and look what Tomlin did with him this year in preseason. Put him in this game. They let him play. He's been throwing touchdowns. So I look at the Steelers. Yes, they are a threat in the AFC. I would say Kansas City's always got to be there because you have a guy in Mahomes, even though they dropped that game. And to me, Joe Cool. You look at Joe Burrows as consistent as he is. Right now, I say Joe Burrows, what he brings to the table, he's the only one that I think can get Mahomes to blink. But so I got to go Cincinnati. I got to say Kansas City. And how about this team? It's no longer, we can't sing the song like it used to, but San Diego Superchargers. I think the Chargers are another team. You got Bosa and you got Khalil Mack. You got two outstanding pass rushers. You got Jerwin James back there. You have a defense that is going to be a lot better. And offensively, bringing in Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator with young Herbert. I think those three teams, Cincinnati, of course, Kansas City, and the Chargers. But I got to throw the Steelers because I don't know what's going on in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think they are that fourth team, but the common denominator you're talking about is the quarterback position. The Chiefs, the Bengals, the Chargers all got their franchise guy. The question for the 49ers, as well as the Steelers, do they have their franchise quarterback? I want to get into that on the other side. I also want to talk about the impact of having Nick Bosa back before week 1, because we were talking about this before the show, Lo. And I know you got an interesting story, I think, that relates to this, that the 49ers may have avoided by getting Nick Bosa under lock and key before week 1. Also, of course, matchups coming up. We got some injury updates. George Kittle looks like he's going to be active today. He was questionable early on this week. So having that Kittle down the middle, I know you love that, Lo.
Hey, baby. Hey, Kittle down the middle.
And, of course, we're going to get into some predictions for the game, both as well as individuals and the team for the season. I cannot wait for 10 a.m. to get here. Kickoff between the Pittsburgh Steelers, your San Francisco 49ers going on the road to Acrisure Stadium in just about 90 minutes. We also got John Dickinson reporting live from Pittsburgh in about 30 minutes at 9 o'clock. That's all coming your way next. Evan Giddings along with Lorenzo Neal. This is the kickoff show leading you up until 49ers and Steelers at 10 a.m. We'll be back after these messages on 95.7 The Game.
You can host the best backyard barbecue when you find a professional on Angie to make your backyard the
Week 1 is here. Evan Giddings alongside Lorenzo Neal getting you set for the 49ers and the Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field, at Three Rivers, at Acrisure. What do we got?
Heinz Field, baby. It's Heinz Field. Come on, don't change it. What is it? Aqueduct? Acrisure? Afresheen?
Well, I know all water runs right through Pittsburgh or through those rivers, but this is what we're talking about here. We're getting into the 49ers. Their season is about to get underway, just under 90 minutes from kickoff, 10 a.m. in Pittsburgh. It's looking like a beautiful 70-degree day, no sign of rain. We got good updates about George Kittle. He appears like he is going to play, was working with kind of an adductor injury in the preseason. Also good news about Charvarius Mooney-Ward, who is out with a heel injury in practice earlier this week. He is going through warm-ups as normal, according to ESPN's Nick Wagoner. So it looks like the 49ers are going to be at full strength,
all hands on deck,
including Lowe, the highest paid defensive player in football, and that's none other than Nick Bosa.
What's that smell? New money, baby. Nicky Bosa, pay the man. They brought the brink trucks and loaded him up. But, it's great. And better late than never. Nick Bosa on that team, bro, is going to be great.
Exactly. Just statistically last year, number 1 in pressure rate with him on the field, 32nd without. This is an absolute game changer, a game breaker, and it's a game-changing contract, Low, because the 5 years, 170, 34 per year, looking at, the $50 million signing bonus, 120 guaranteed. All these things are records. But we were talking about this before the show and what the 49ers might have avoided by getting Nick Bosa on the field and ready before Week 1 kicked off. Because to me, that was the biggest question, maybe even of the entire offseason. When your best player is not around the team, when he's not on the field, there is something to worry about. But you went through this experience in San Diego where perhaps one of your best, if not the best, playmaker you guys had was holding out, and it was Antonio Gates, and it affected the season.
Oh, without a doubt. I think that this Nicky Bosa signing is huge. And, before we start talking about Nicky, I'll just kind of go back and, kind of recap kind of what we went through. I remember, when I think it was 2004 or 5, one of those years, Antonio Gates, he's up and he's trying to work on his contract, and we're going to open up against the Dallas Cowboys. I think a game we lost by like 3 or 4. It was a very, very close game. And, Tony was having contract negotiation problems, issues, just like Nick, no biggie, it's part of the game. But signed several days before.
Yeah.
And the GM and Antonio Gates, kind of because of the situation, felt like, okay, I'm going to punish you, or I'm going to do something where, maybe I don't feel that you're ready. And we didn't play him. We end up losing that game. We go 9-7, miss the playoffs by 1 game. We have Antonio Gates. There's no way we do not lose to the Dallas Cowboys if he plays in that particular game. So sometimes, you can have a temporary solution for a permanent problem, because the permanent problem, we didn't get in the playoffs, and a temporary solution was to say, I'm not going to play this guy because of the fact he held out and didn't go through training camp, so I'm going to show this player, I'm going to make him suspend him for a game. Why? For what? For who? These guys are players. And you look at John Lynch, and you think about John Lynch, and you think about who I played with and know very well, played for years, played in Japan Bowl with, and, played on the same team in Tampa Bay. But when you think about sometimes how coaches and players in front office, they have, it's sometimes that place that we talk about authority or control, and they do certain things because they want to say, well, I'll show him. You never once see John and these guys in certain organizations make it personal. Yeah. They're like, hey, let's just get this done. I understand he wants a lot of money. He's deserving. We just want to get this done. Hey, it might not happen on the time when, but we know what he's worth. So they understand the guy's value. Some teams and some organizations, whether they say it in front of them or behind their back, at least they do it, and sometimes that can be detrimental to the team.
Were you at all worried about if this deal was going to get done before Week 1?
Yeah, guys wanted to. I mean, let me tell you something. Without a doubt, let me tell you, the Niners would went to Three Rivers or Heinz Field or the Aqueduct. They would have went anyway and said, "We're going to win this game." Yeah. Their mindset, well, we're going to be prepared to win this game with Nicky Bosa or without. That's just the way guys are built. We went into that Dallas Cowboys because we still had the great LT. They still have Christian McCaffrey. So they're going to go in that game saying, even without Nicky Bosa, we're going to win because you know what? People don't think we're good enough to win without him. We're good enough. And that's how you have to think as a player. That's how you have to think as a coach. But realistically, let me tell you right now, if Nicky Bosa wasn't on playing, I think the point spread would be the Steelers would be favored. So because of this guy is that much of a game changer, he is going to put pressure. So this is a great signing for the Niners, and it came just in time because you're going to a hostile place, a place where they have a couple pass rushers too.
I was going to say, no, it's a similar situation. We were talking about the similarities between TJ Watt and Nick Bosa's holdout throughout this week before it got done. And the difference, of course, was TJ Watt was more of a hold in. He was around the team. He was on the field, kept himself in shape before he inked that mega deal and then turned it into a 22.5 sack season. I'm not sure if Nick Bosa's got 22.5 in his bag this year, but what he absolutely does have is an impact on winning. And that's why I'm with you. I think that this game without Nick Bosa is one I would lean towards the black and gold.
Yeah.
Now I'm replacing that black with red because Nick Bosa's on the field. Is it fair to expect Nick Bosa to be Nick Bosa in this first week? And how much do you think we'll see from him, Lo?
Well, Nick Bosa's a pro. And that's the thing about it. You got to realize, Ian, that Nick Bosa's practice. Nick Bosa has been working out. And you heard Kyle Shanahan said, it's what we thought.
Yeah.
Because they know that he's a pro. They know that he was going to be in the best shape. They know that he was going to be training. And they know that he was going to be doing what he needed to do to have his body ready for this particular day to play against Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing you look at, you ask, is he going to be ready? Absolutely. But I'm going to tell you right now, you can't play this guy 50, 60 snaps. And that's the thing. And I know that he wants to. You got to understand, he's a boy dog and he'll hunt. As Deion say, that's a dog and that's a cat. I don't have captains. I just have leaders and dogs. He's a dog. But you got to protect him from himself. You got to make sure you want him on third down because I think that he's great against the run, but you got to have him on a pitch count because he's not used to being hit. He's not used to having these pads on and playing like that right now. So he's still effective and he can still be great, but I would definitely put him on a pitch count.
And I also think that he's going to be impactful specifically against the run because this was a 49ers team in the preseason, and that's really been, I think, one of the underlying concerns if we're talking about what they showed in the first 3 games, non-regular season, but they got absolutely gashed. I mean, you were at the game against the Los Angeles Chargers in the preseason. They were giving up 9.5 yards on the ground, and the run defense has been a little bit suspect. To me, that points more towards a lack of depth, or not as much depth on the defensive line as we've seen from typical Kyle Shanahan teams. You know, whether it's Robert Saleh, whether it's DeMeco Ryans, now it's Steve Wilks. I think that they're a very top-heavy team. The addition of Hargrave is going to be huge, but he's more of a pass-rushing interior guy. How does Eric Armstead fare against the run this year? Will he return to his 2021 form, or is he going to be the guy that's kind of like last year, missing some games, not up to his normal type of standard? I think Nick Bosa is a hugely impactful guy against the run. Of course, he can get to the quarterback, but this is a Pittsburgh team that is going to try and run the ball and establish itself with Najee Harris. Jalen Warren's been an impressive rookie for them, and especially helping a guy like Kenny Pickett, who I think is a capable passer, but needs that running game to be successful. Bosa's going to have a big impact there.
No question they are. Ian, when you think about the Steelers, they're going to try to run the ball, and they're going to show physicality because they want to say, let's wear these guys out. And I want to wear Nick Bosa out because I want to be in 3rd and short, 3rd and 2 and 3, so now they can pass or run. So you can nullify the pass rush of Nicky Bosa. So that's what you do if you're the Steelers. And when you talked about the run game, you're right. They're giving up 7-8 yards of run, and you think about the Niners interior. At times they've shown that they have to be better. And this is what Nicky Bosa brings in. When you got guys that can run on the backside, when Nicky can set a hard edge, and that's what you have. Nicky Bosa's low to the ground. He's physical, powerful. We look in this guy's thighs. We saw him up on the TV. We're like, wow, this guy looks great. He looks like he's in great shape.
Not a small bear.
No, he's not. But when you have a guy that can set the edge, so when you run and you look at the Steelers, they want to get to the perimeter, run to the ball to the edge. When Nicky can set the edge, that means you put your foot in the ground and you can hold the point, and now you can't move. So the offense wants to get the defensive lineman running lateral. So now you stretch the defense, and now guys on the backside, they're chasing, so they can't run it down because now the running back has a sideline to work with. So now Nick sets a hard edge. Now the running back has to cut back, and that's where pursuit comes. So he does a great job of setting the edge. Now the backside becomes the front side because running backs, when they know that they can't get to the edge, they have to cut back against the grain and try to find a hole. When you have a guy that can set a hard edge and playing defense, now the front side becomes the backside because of the fact the running back's going to cut back, and that's when the Niners can pursue because they run fast.
This is the kickoff show. 8 a.m., 10 a.m. here on Week 1. NFL season starts today. Pittsburgh Steelers hosting your San Francisco 49ers. I'll just call it Heinz Field up at Pittsburgh.
Let's do that.
Lorenzo Neal's going to be with you for every single pregame show. The kickoff show for home games, Larry Kruger's going to have you locked in. We'll be with you for every single road game, including next week at Los Angeles. And then, of course, that first home game on Thursday night against the New York Giants. Lorenzo Neal's going to have you locked for each and every kickoff show all season long on 95.7 The Game. Also, make sure to tap into overtime immediately after the final whistle. Mark Grandy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett are going to have you locked in for some post-game coverage or reaction to every single game this season, all here on 95.7 The Game. A couple of inactives to report low. Shocker. Brandon Allen, the third quarterback, is inactive today. Braden Willis, a tight end. Linebackers Jalen Graham, D. Winters. Running back Ty Davis-Price, along with D-tackle Kalia Davis. As expected, cornerback Charvarius Ward and tight end George Kittle are good to go. That's all from Nick Wagner of ESPN. So it looks like the 49ers are going to have themselves
full strength, baby,
as close to 100% health as possible. And that's really all you can ask for, right? Because now that they've shrunk the preseason from 4 to 3 games, to me, yes, it's about getting those young guys experience. It's about maybe seeing a little bit what you have from a young quarterback like Brock Purdy. But it's really just about getting through the preseason to week 1 fully healthy.
No question. And that's what you look around the league, and we talk, you and I, we have still vested sometimes in L.A. You look at what they did. Didn't even play their starters. The Chargers, what have they been the biggest deal? End up firing some of these, the people in the, in the training office, because you don't want to play a lot of these guys because they went into seasons, limping into seasons with too many injuries. It's great that the Niners have their full roster pretty much and not a lot of injuries. That's hard to do on opening day. Credit Kyle Shanahan and those guys for taking off some of the load, but knowing how to practice, keeping guys safe, because you need it, especially the first week, because there's going to be some guys get nicked up and there's going to be injuries. That's just football. It's a contact sport. So it's always good to go into season with everyone, all men on deck, all hands on deck. So this is a great start for the Niners. But now you got to go out and say, look, everybody's healthy. Let's go win this football game.
And a big part of that football game, if they're going to win, right now they are 2.5-point favorites at Pittsburgh, 2 points depending on where you go. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a pick'em game. And I think that, look, we'll get to our predictions in a bit, but the biggest swing in this game to me is at the quarterback position for both teams. I think they're very similar in the sense that, yes, they're both second-year players. Kenny Pickett got a chance midway through the year to take over for Mitch Trubisky last season. Right. Mason Rudolph was in the mix. I think now Brock Purdy has a chance after putting the injury behind him. I don't have concerns so much about his elbow as I do potentially staying upright as a smaller quarterback. But to me, Lo, if we're looking at this game and what Brock Purdy versus Kenny Pickett is going to turn into, I think that Brock Purdy has shown more, but I think that they are both question marks as far as their trajectory, their potential. And it's interesting that you got the first quarterback taken in last year's draft against the last quarterback taken in last year's draft.
Wow.
The last quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, has looked like he is Mr. Relevant.
Right.
Meanwhile, Kenny Pickett is still a little bit more in that prove-it stage. What do you kind of expect from those two guys? And do you think it's fair to kind of place those Super Bowl expectations that we're talking about in the first segment on a guy who's 24 years old, and that's Brock Purdy?
Yeah, I think you have to place those expectations on Brock Purdy, because if you didn't, Trey Lance would still be in the building.
Fair.
Think about what they said and what you've seen from Brock Purdy. He's been amazing. Let's just, I got to be honest. The guy has been amazing because he gets it. And then it's interesting because you talked about Pickett taking the place of the quarterback last year of
Trubisky, yeah.
Mitch Trubisky. Going back, as I digress, think about Mitch Trubisky. Played 1 year, 16 games of college. Think about Trey. How many games did he play? Not much. So didn't really have the football IQ. Both these guys had so much talent, just raw talent, raw ability. So you look at them and say, oh my goodness, this is what these guys do. They win, but athletic ability, to say these guys are great. Now got to catch them up with football. The difference, so now you had a guy in Trey that wasn't ready, had all the athletic ability, more athletic ability than any of the quarterbacks on the roster, but because the team is ready to win now, they had to move in a new direction because Purdy was more game ready. So it's not that you look at some of these guys, it's not that they couldn't necessarily play, but the football IQ. And so when you look at these two quarterbacks now, Purdy and Pickett, what's the biggest difference? Purdy gets the ball out of his hands. Purdy understands what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. 1, 2, 3, the ball is gone. And it frustrates defense. You don't see Purdy taking a lot of sacks because he understands what Kyle Shanahan's offense, how it's supposed to run. That's what makes him effective. You don't see very now and then, very rare, but you see Purdy 7-step drop and he holds onto it long and takes some shots down the field. That's after they get things rolling. That's when they establish certain things. That's when they know that the line can hold up. But when you just watch Purdy, it's 1, 2, 3, it's slants, it's cooks, it's quick outs. They understand the philosophy of the offense, and now it's 2nd and 3. Now it's 2nd and 4. Now you're on 3rd down. Now you're winning. They're winning on 1st and 2nd down, so it makes this offense efficient. Purdy runs an efficient offense. That's why the Niners are able to win games, and that's why they're able to win time of possession because they're so efficient. I don't know if the Steelers are that efficient at the quarterback position.
That's a good point. I think that's a really good point, Lo, because Brock Purdy last year, and again, his weapons are more proven. I don't think the Steelers lack skill position talent. I think Deontay Johnson is good. I think George Pickens is a playmaker. I think Pat Freiermuth probably is underrated as a tight end. He makes contested catches, especially inside the red zone. But can Kenny Pickett play point guard the way we saw Brock Purdy do it last year? I think within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage is where Brock Purdy is so good at knowing where to go with the football.
Yes.
40% of his passes at or behind the line of scrimmage last season, and I don't think that changes, especially in week 1. To me, this is a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that, yes, has a dominant pass rush. I think they're a little weaker against the run. I think that they have perhaps more proven members in the secondary, specifically Minkah Fitzpatrick, but I do think that the separation between Purdy and Pickett is going to be from 5 yards in and especially over the middle of the field. That's where Purdy can pick these guys apart.
Agreed, and that's what Shanahan tells his receiver. Win. He says, you have to win. But Purdy is like Steph Curry. He understands that they are going to win, so he's already throwing it to the spot. Magic Johnson, he was great with the magician with the ball. Just let it go because he knew and trusted those guys can be there. He's got Ayuk, and he's got Debo, and he's got Kittle. These guys, he knows they're going to win. He's throwing it to a spot because he knows and trusts those guys, and that's what Shanahan has done. He has got these guys understand, look, the ball's coming to you. You better be ready. He knows that you're going to win, and that's what makes this offense efficient and consistent because they know where to go with the ball, and that's the thing that I don't see from the Steelers. At times they want to hold the ball long. They want to take the deep shot. I get it. It can be explosive, but the Niners can be explosive too because they win on 1st and 2nd down. Defense start to say, we got to come up and we got to press them. We got to bring 8 guys in. We got to play more man. We got to jump on guys. And now you start bringing them to secondary, and that's when the Niners can take those deep shots, those overshots, those long, the posts and the corner routes, because of the fact defense start gambling because they're tired of moving, the Niners moving the chain because their efficiency and consistency.
And look, I want to give Kenny Pickett some credit because it is the preseason, but he was
lights out,
just about as flawless as you can be. 5 drives, 5 touchdowns, and near perfect quarterback rating. He's certainly looking to take that sophomore stride. But I think that Brock Purdy in this game, it is a matchup to me that as I continue to look at the back and forth, it does favor the 49ers. And we'll dig into more of the X's and O's in just about 10 minutes with John Dickinson, 49ers reporter. He's coming up live from Pittsburgh at 9 o'clock, so I'm looking forward to hearing from JD what he feels like could swing this game in favor of the 49ers. But if we're looking at Brock Purdy versus Kenny Pickett, I think that Pickett might have a bigger arm, but that doesn't mean that Brock Purdy can't be efficient down the field because we saw him be able to connect with those guys, and the separation on the outside to me is yak. And that's where the 49ers can dominate. The Pittsburgh Steelers last year did not have receivers that could play as much after the catch as what we're seeing from the 49ers, who have consistently been in the top 1, 2, or 3 in that category every single year. Brandon Ayuk, people are looking for a breakout season from.
No question.
Deebo Samuel's an absolute horse. George Kittle, who's going to be active today, gets after once he's got the ball in his hands. To me, the 49ers, especially early in downs, that first down, I'm very curious to see if it's going to be a pass-heavy game from Kyle Shanahan, because as much as I think people are expecting a big year from Christian McCaffrey and that running game as they always have, I think this is a game, to me, Lo, that I want to see Brock Purdy rip it 30 times.
Yeah, I think he will, because just like you alluded to, when you get the ball into Ayuk and you give it into Debo, Debo's a running back playing receiver.
Yeah.
He's a receiver playing running back.
No doubt.
So when you can get him a quick ball and just say, hey, get the ball out of Brock's hand and let Debo get it, the yak yards after contact. People love to see those yak yards after contact. And Debo is one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league when it comes to yak yards. So, and the thing about what makes it tough, and I say, well, God, all you got to do is come up and press him and do those certain things. He's so elusive. And so if you make him run a dig route or those option routes, the choice routes, he can beat you and get the ball in his hand, and it's hard tackling one-on-one. Very rarely do you see Debo Samuels tackled one-on-one. So like you're saying, if Purdy can get the ball out of his hand and throwing the ball 30, 40 times, I'm okay with it because 15 to 20 of those passes are going to be within 5 yards. They're going to do some other things, a toss or whatever it may be. So I like that philosophy because they understand that's how you wear the Steelers out. You look at the Steelers, you look at Hayward, what he is in the middle. He's a run stopper, big guy. So, but you get those guys to run laterally and now put the pressure on them to defend the sideline, every blade of grass. And that's what Kyle Shanahan does, I think, better than any offensive coordinator or any offenses in the league. He makes the defense defend every blade of grass through motions, through movements, through over routes, through misdirections, to stretch plays, to boots. When you do that, now your defense have to defend every blade of grass, and that's when this offense become even more deadly.
Yeah, and look, and of course it does help when you got the number one or number two, Warriors defense on the other side. You got your number one player back in Nick Bosa. You got the addition of Javon Hargrave. I think this 49ers defense is also kind of a tough matchup for Pittsburgh. It's interesting to see how the styles, we dug into the stylistic differences between the head coaches, talking about the quarterbacks now, some of the skill position players. Defensively, I think this is a Pittsburgh group that, to me, is going to challenge Cincinnati for the AFC North. I think they can win that division, and I think that the San Francisco 49ers are a team that is going to figure out a lot about itself because of what the Steelers present, and especially on defense, they're a team that can pin their ears back with the best of them. I know, your guy, the Iron Man, Cam Hayward, someone that is absolutely going to be a force in the middle. But of course, how's T.J. Watt going to get after Brock Purdy? Is Aaron Highsmith, coming off a 14.5 sack season, going to be able to get in the backfield?
He wants to get paid.
He does.
The 14 sacks, he's trying to say, hey, look, I know we got a guy. I know we have a Watt, but look, don't forget about me. Hey, guys, hands up. I got 14 last year. And here's the thing that you're doing, Evan, talking about what the Pittsburgh does as far as defensive front. You have to realize these guys are looking and saying, who's better? You don't think that the Steelers' defensive front each man think that their defensive front's better? You don't think that the Niners think that their defensive front better? This is going to be a matchup. Football's won in the trenches, won and lost in the trenches. This is a trench. This is about the trenches. This game is going to be won and lost up front. And when you think about the defensive front, we don't think Watson, I see the money that he got. You don't think that this is personal. You look at these guys, and I'm asking you. Now I'm going to turn.
That's a good point. No, I like that.
Who do you think have a better game, Watt or Bosa?
I think T.J. Watt is going to have a better game because Nick Bosa has been a little late to the party.
Okay.
But then again, we saw T.J. Watt get 2 sacks in his first game when he didn't sign until 2 days before the season. So
right.
I just think T.J. Watt's going to have more opportunity because he's going to be on the field more. That's why I would say he'll have a better game.
I like that, but it's hard to say. But see, you're looking, you're like, man, okay, but if Nicky went out and had 4 sacks, we wouldn't be surprised because that's Nick Bosa. But TJ has 4 sacks, we wouldn't be surprised because both these guys are playmakers and game changers. So these
Nick Bosa will get a sack today. I'll say that.
Okay, you with that?
Yeah,
I'm with you. You can't block the guy. He's gonna find a way. But I just think that you have both of these defenses that are trying to prove a point. This is about who's got the best defense. This is about who think they're better up front. And I think you're going to see the stars come out today. This is going to be a great matchup. I can't wait for this game. I'm just looking forward to it.
And it is about an hour away from kickoff in Pittsburgh. The 49ers, Week 1, taking on the Steelers. 2-point favorites on the road to the 49ers. We're going to get into the game predictions, some of the individual statistics we're looking at, X's and O's in the next hour, the final hour before kickoff. This is the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game. Up next, we got 49ers reporter John Dickinson. He is live at Acrisure Stadium getting ready for the first game of the season. Evan Giddings and Lorenzo Neal here with you on the Kickoff Show. Also, Shout out to the YouTube chat on Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. If you got any questions for us, if you want any predictions you want to throw out, please chime in. We'll read them off in the next hour because we got 60 minutes left until kickoff before the beginning of the 2023 NFL season, and we are breaking it all down here on 95.7 The Game. But up next, John Dickinson will join us. Appreciate you tuning in here on a Sunday morning. Evan Giddings alongside Lorenzo Neal. We're back after this on 95.7 The Game.
Listen to live Black Eye Free audio from every major league club.
And Aaron Judge with some thump.
Lorenzo Neal taking you up until kick here on the Kickoff Show. And hello, we got a couple minutes here to kill because John Dickinson's going to connect.
Yeah.
So we have him right now. We got him right now.
JD.
Reporting live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. None other than John Dickinson here. Great member of the family here, 95.7 The Game. JD, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's going on, fellas? Doing well. Good to be with you. A festive atmosphere on hand. A lot of the black and gold. The Steeler Nation is fired up for this one, and a lot of 49er fans on hand as well. So it should be fun. Looks like the rain's going to hold out. Having some flashbacks to Chicago where there was just rain in the forecast and then a downpour really right around this time with about an hour to go before kickoff that cleared a little bit, but we know how that game ended up. But, looking great to have football back. This is a great football town,
right,
as you guys both know. And Lowe obviously playing games in this stadium. It gets rowdy and raucous, and good people here in Pittsburgh. It should be fun.
Have you seen any of the boys there? Is JB there? Hines there? They don't know how Hines feels. Are any of those cats you see walking around? If so, let us know. And then tell us about what is it like to have Nick Bosa, you think, for just the 49ers team and the organization?
I think the timing of the deal really gave him a jolt because I think, there was just so much talk about whether it was Brock Purdy or in his injury or Trey Lance or when's Bosa coming in. It felt like the entire preseason wasn't really about football, yet they were gearing up to play this important season where the goal is to get to and win the Super Bowl. But it felt, they were having these practices every day and gearing up, that things just weren't complete, whether it was what was going to happen with the backup quarterback spot and Trey Lance. But then the big one, which I think because there was so much attention focused on Trey Lance in the background, everybody just assumed, the Bosa thing's going to get done. The Bosa thing's going to get done. The Bosa thing's going to get done. And I don't think anybody would have believed that it would have taken as long as it did to get done, right up until that first day of the first real practice leading up to week one, and then he gets out and gets a couple of practice days in and is able to fly with the team back to Pittsburgh. But I think it was a jolt at the right time when I think maybe the tone of the 49er training camp and lead up in the preseason was it was headed in a scattered direction, in a direction of disorder. And I think now it's like, all right, full systems go. Brock Purdy's healthy. Nick Bosa's here. This team has the fullest capability to maximize the talent that they have, which they believe is a Super Bowl roster.
Yeah, I think a jolt is a great way to put that, JD. We're talking to John Dickinson live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, before the 49ers kick off at 10 o'clock against the Steelers. And looking outside of Nick Bosa, to me, the other kind of obvious but big parallel question is Brock Purdy along with Kenny Pickett. And Lowe and I were kind of tossing around the difference between them. And I think situation is a big part of that. But for you, what do you expect not only today from Brock Purdy, but everyone is talking about how this is going to be the guy. And obviously moving off of Trey Lance kind of indicates that. What do you feel like is a fair expectation both in this game as well as this season for the newest signal caller to be, and that's Brock Purdy?
Yeah, I think you could make the case this is going to be the toughest game that Brock Purdy's had in his career. I know with the injury he had in Seattle on the short week, that was the game that basically told the 49ers, hey, he's our guy, and he put up a bunch of great numbers in a bunch of the other games. But because we didn't really get to see him in the NFC Championship game because he got hurt so quickly, I think road game in this environment against what projects to be a real physical defense with pass rushers and DBs, I think this is a great early test for Purdy to see what he's got. But I think steady. I mean, to me, it's not about the greatness will come and the numbers and the big plays and everything. But to me, it's all about steadiness and executing Kyle Shanahan's game plan to the best of his abilities with the running game, with the short passes, with the things that are schemed up within all of that to lead to wide open throws in the context of the offense and hit those throws. Just stay calm. I think they're believers in his demeanor and just have today be an extension of the games that he played last year where the 49ers had a lot of success? And if there is some adversity, like, he's kind of due, to be honest. I mean, he's due for a bad one. Now, today, obviously, because it's week 1, everybody would freak out, and you hope he's healthy and looks healthy above everything, fellas. But I think that to this point, he hasn't really had a lot of adversity. Battling back from this injury is that. So if he doesn't play well, I don't think it would be time to hit the panic button. It's just sort of that next box that needed to be checked as far as, he had a bad game, took a loss, move forward. But if the Niners can win this game and he plays well in this environment against this defense today, I think it's one of those that starts to immediately make you think this team has the goods to make another deep run.
JD, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that when you think about this game, this matchup, the Steelers are a tough physical team like you alluded to. So staying in that same sphere, so what can we expect from Kyle Shanahan's game plan this week, today against the Steelers? Because of the things that you alluded to, what can you expect Shanahan to do to make it easier for young Purdy?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of Christian McCaffrey early. I think it's a lot of getting the ball to McCaffrey in the run game. I think it's a lot of the short stuff to McCaffrey early. I mean, he tends to be the safety net, right? Whenever the 49ers are in a pickle, whenever they're in a little bit of a jam, and you even see it sometimes at the training camp practices, they'll have move the ball or where they're going 11 on 11 for an extended period, and the ones are going to be out there for a while. Anytime there's a bad play, you always see Kyle Shanahan draw up something for Christian McCaffrey on that next play to kind of stabilize things. So I think he's an incredible stabilizer in addition to being their best offensive player overall, at least skill player overall. So I think it's a lot of McCaffrey. I think it's a lot of short stuff early to try and maybe take advantage of what should be a super aggressive Steelers pass rush in this game today and in this environment today.
John Dickinson with us live here on 95.7 The Game from Pittsburgh, taking on, of course, the 49ers are taking on the Steelers in just about 50 minutes away from kickoff. JD, I want to get you out of here, of course, with the prediction, but why do you think that the 49ers, will win this game? And if they don't, why do you think that they get beat?
I'll go the last part first.
Okay.
I think if the 49ers get beat today, it's going to be because they can't stop the run and they get beat in the big play department. The Steelers are able to hit some big plays in the passing game. I think the Steelers are going to try to cram it down the 49ers' throat. They want to be just as physical, and I think you could make the case they're one of the few teams in the NFL that can match the 49ers' physicality. I feel like that's a wash on the surface, but I think the 49ers are going to have to show that they can stop the run. I think they're going to attack the slot. The Steelers are. What do the 49ers do there? Is it going to be Isaiah Oliver? Is it going to be Lenore with Ambry Thomas outside? I think they're going to test Charvarius Ward, who is going to be active, and see how he holds up dealing with the heel injury. So I think this is a good test for the Niners, but it's going to be big plays. It's going to be inability to stop the run if the 49ers lose. And I think it's going to be the offensive line can't hold up against the pass rushers and Watt and everybody that the Steelers put out there. If the Niners win this game, I think it's going to come down to turnovers. I think they will have to win the turnover battle to win this game. And Kenny Pickett probably will give the 49ers some opportunities in this one, as well as he played down the stretch for the Steelers. I think there will be chances for the Niners to put pressure on him and force him into mistakes. To me, it's mistakes and maybe the early Kenny Pickett mistake that allows the 49ers to stabilize and keep the game on schedule. I think the Niners need to keep this game on schedule. Doesn't have to get off to a great start, although that would be awesome for them, but just don't get down to where you're playing from behind in this game immediately with the crowd and the pass rush and all of that having to take effect in Brock Purdy's return from this injury on top of it. So if the Niners win, I think They get a couple of turnovers, which allow them to settle in and work their game plan and run the football and keep the pass rush down and kind of go mistake free. And that's the path there. By the way, Jake Moody, just real quick, I wanted to get this in. I know you guys have got to run. Jake Moody look comfortable. Look comfortable. He went through about a 10-minute, about 2.5 hours before the game, went through about a 10-minute where he was the only guy on the field, and he wasn't kicking, but he was kind of doing the golfer thing, right, where you're visualizing your shot, you're looking at your lie where the ball is going to go down, and a lot of kickers do it, but to see Moody really in his first real opportunity here with, I think, some pressure on him. To me, there's some pressure on Moody. You miss and almost miss the kicks that he did in the preseason when you're as highly advertised as he was, with the third-round pick and all of that. He's got some pressure on him, and then an injury to boot. And this is not Low. I'm sure your kicker friends will tell you over the years this is not. This is a tough place to kick in that open end zone. So he was really working that open, the open side, the river side of the stadium here. But look good. He knocked down 45, 50, 55-yarders in his portion of the warm-up before I got out here to talk to you guys. But I will say this. He's looked much better in practice, and when it hasn't been live than he has when it has been. And we've all seen it. It's just he looks calm and normal. But my concern, guys, for Moody, and look, I don't want to write the kid's career off before it's even started, but my concern is, and maybe this becomes not a thing, it just the bright lights of a real game have seemingly affected him.
They have,
He just looked like a different guy to this point in games versus practice or warm-up.
No question. Hey, JD, spot on. I played with the guy, Nate Kading. He would make field goals, had to see all kinds of different things, and got it in Jets, missed 3 playoffs. So I played with Al Del Greco, who was one of the best kickers. We played against Baltimore the year we could have won a Super Bowl, and he missed a field goal. So I've seen the pressure get the kicker. So I too agree with you. Real quick, JD, you talked about it, alluded to why the Niners could lose, but also talked about why they could win. Nick Bosa, we understand, is Defensive Player of the Year. We get it, and he's one of the best, probably the best defensive player on the field. But to me, JD, games are won and lost in the trenches. So if you're going collectively and said, who would you give the advantage to then in the trenches, offensively and defenses, both sides, and then to offset that, does the Niners have something else to offset that, or how do you view just the trenches on both these teams?
I think the Steelers have an advantage playing at home, and I think the Steelers took it. They took the preseason really seriously. I think this is a tough game, and the Niners almost need something early in the game, whether it's a big play that they make, or maybe it's a turnover, or the Steelers have a miscue or something to just kind of settle things down to where the 49ers can play in the trenches from a position of advantage. Low. I think that's kind of why I set it up that way. I think mano a mano today, like I kind of like the Steelers in this game, to be perfectly honest. And the Niners, maybe I'm over concerned with the fact that the Niners just haven't looked like themselves early in the season. I mean, that has been a thing, 3-4, 3-5 to begin seasons. Although with Christian McCaffrey in the fold, that all flipped real quick with the 10 consecutive wins and Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo when they were the quarterback. The 49ers were winning everything up until the point where he got hurt. But I think this is going to be maybe the most difficult game on the entire schedule for the 49ers when it's all said and done. Crazy to think week 1, and I know they go to Philly, and Seattle's always tough and all of that. But this is a good test for a team that hasn't been good early on in the season.
Well, we appreciate the breakdown, JD, and we're going to be looking for some of those keys to play themselves on the field because it's a big test for the 49ers. I know you said it could be their toughest game on the schedule. I'm right there with you, and I cannot wait until kickoff, so I appreciate you joining us and breaking it down.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you, fellas.
Sounds good. Take it easy. That is JD, John Dickinson, live from Pittsburgh with us here on 95.7 The Game. And look, I think his concerns are some that you voiced in the first hour, Low, which is do the 49ers have an advantage in the trenches? And if not, how are they going to combat that?
Right. And that's the whole thing. And I'm with JD. I think that you have to give them the edge. You have to give the Steelers the edge. There's a guy that we talked about, and JD talked about him as well, is Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I think that's the X factor, and I'll kind of tell you why. JD talked about, hey, running a lot, all those things. I get that. You're going to have to run him, but I don't necessarily run him in between tackles and do that because I wouldn't try to beat him up because this is going to be a stingy defense. I use other running backs to run at times, but I think the biggest mismatch when you're using McCaffrey, he's too fast for linebackers. You can't put a linebacker and say you're going to guard him one-on-one because he's just going to beat the linebackers. He's too physical probably for his safety. So when you look at the mismatch, and that's why I said you might be able to, even though you can lose in the trenches, if you can get McCaffrey on the wheel routes, the angle routes, the deep overs, he can be very, very effective. And I think that can be a huge swing for the Niners because the mismatch he presents to linebackers and safeties, not just running the ball, but out of the backfield. So I like that matchup, and I think that's an X factor. And then when we talk about Debo, because what Debo can bring like that as well. So I think those are going to be the great equalizers today if the Niners are going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Niners have more mismatch players on offense, and it starts with number 23, who honestly did not get a ton of, I don't know if it's coverage or conversation surrounding him this offseason, just because I feel like we all know what he's going to give you, which is, and this is how I look at Christian McCaffrey. It's not necessarily the rushes, but it's touches, just total touches, whether it's in the passing game, on the ground. To me, the number I don't think will be as large week one as people might expect, just because I think the 49ers understand how key he is to making everything go offensively, and they want to try and manage him throughout the entire season so that he is healthy for the most important time of the year in December and, of course, into playoffs. But for me, 20 touches for Christian McCaffrey, whether it's through the air or on the ground, is something that he absolutely can handle. And this is a guy that has, I know he's had some seasons marred by injury, but when he's been healthy and played a full season, he has been somewhere between 350 and 400 touches for the entire year. So I think today, as much as I want to believe that the 49ers will use him to make Purdy's life easier, I also think they need to make his life easy for the full 17. And that's why I think somewhere maybe on the south side of 20 is what I'd expect from him today.
Yeah, I do all day. And if he doesn't touch the ball 20 times or more, they're not winning this game. He's going to touch the ball over 20 times.
Interesting.
He's just but you talked about by air, by on the ground. He's going
by
to
land
do
or by
that.
sea.
By land or by sea. You have to get him involved because you want that. And you're going to have him and Debo the same side. Okay, who are you going to double? Pick your poison. And that's what Shanahan's going to have to do a great job and be masterful today is matchups. He's going to have to understand, okay, what is the defense can do? If I give you 3x3, who are you going to do? If I go trips and get guys in the bunch, what are you going to do? You got a guy at the triangle where that's called a bunch where one guy's at the point and those two guys on the side. They either have to box that in, they have to just widen and say, okay, we got to widen. Because if you go up and try to play man, one guy's going to push the guy up and the other one's going to go underneath and it's going to rub the guys off. So you're going to put defenses in tough positions. So a lot of teams can't do that. But because, like you alluded to earlier, Evan, is because the Niners have the mismatch and the talent to do certain things that other teams can't do. Those are going to be hard plays to defend without giving up 5 to 10 yards or even possibly more when you get in that bunch look, because it's going to be hard for the Steelers to combat that.
Yeah, last year the Steelers were a top 10 defense against the run. They were the bottom half defense against the pass. And so with not much, kind of shuffling on the defensive side, and I don't think they necessarily needed to me, last year, the Steelers' season was hampered by injury, was hampered by kind of some, a revolving door at quarterback, trying to figure out an offensive identity. But the defense is something that's, absolutely, to me, is something that stems from a Mike Tomlin. It stems from a guy who is buttoned up, who gets down, puts his hand in the dirt, is not afraid to dig in deep and do his job. And to me, I do wonder how the immediate physicality right off the bat of the season is something that the 49ers, to see how they handle it, because I believe they're also a physical group. And even though we discussed the differences between Shanahan and Tomlin, I think there is a theme among Shanahan teams of needing to be physical, especially in the trenches. But I also wonder on the offensive line, if we're kind of talked about the reasons why we think they can be good today, the Niners, but the concerns that we have, to me, do begin on the offensive line, because this was not a team that you really addressed a whole lot of in the offseason. You let McGlinchey go for $85 million to Denver. Colton McKivitz, next man up. You didn't bring in a guy that was going to challenge him for that spot. Banks, Burford, Brendel's a new center, and you know what you got on the left side with Trent Williams. But is this offensive line one that the 49ers are going to be okay with trusting against a very good pass rush like the one that the Steelers have?
Well, I think when you look at just life itself and just football too as well, you don't, if you're going against an individual that's, great in the sprint, you're not going to say, okay, God, I'm not going to go race this guy because I know he's going to beat me. You're going to say, okay, shoot, let's go and I'm going to put some obstacles in front of you. I'm not just going to let you run straight ahead and fast because you're way faster than me. I'm going to build a wall because I think that I'm stronger. I can get over the wall faster. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, have you run through mud because I think that I'm faster than you mud, because just because you're faster than me doesn't mean you're not. I can still be stronger than you. When you look at the Niners, and where I'm going with this, when you look at the Niners, you look at the Steelers, just because the Steelers are physical and because they want to get downhill and do those certain things, the Niners doesn't have to play in their sandbags. And I think that's where Kyle Shanahan's going to be tested today and tried today, because you don't have to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have to run right at these guys. We got to be powerful. You got to get these guys by design. It's got to be by scheme. Because like you talking about Hayward, what he does, and Bosa, all these different guys that they have, on the defensive front, far as for the Steelers and what they bring to the table, Watt, you have to get them by design. You got to make guys stop their feet. When you're talking about pass rushers, okay, what am I going to do where I won't give them a clean edge where they can get downhill and put pressure on my quarterback? I'm going play action. I'm going to run the ball to this guy. I'm going to say, okay, let's run. Let's do a flea flicker. Now he's got to stop his feet to think about run. Okay, I'm having guys fire out because they think it's run, and all of a sudden now I'm passing. So I think it's got to be by design, and it's got to be organized where you don't let an individual or a team play to their strength. That's going to be imperative today, because you are playing against a team that's physical. You're playing against a team that wants it. You're playing a team that, like you alluded to, that may have the advantages. And you talk about the offensive line. They're not as stout up front. You let guys leave. So how do you combat that? That's by design. And that's why Kyle Shanahan is the San Francisco 49ers head coach.
And we are going to be seeing what Kyle Shanahan has in his bag in just over 30 minutes, because kickoff comes up at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern at Acrisure Stadium, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 49ers and Steelers, 2.5-point favorites on the road to the 49ers. And I want to use that for the other side, Lo, because I want to dig into the position battles that we're looking forward to, the keys to the matchup, and, of course, final predictions, all coming up in our final segment. Last half hour of the kickoff show is on the way next. Evan Giddings alongside Lorenzo Neal. Also make sure to tune in right after the final whistle, immediately following the 49ers-Steelers game. It is overtime with Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett, and Alan Stiles. They got your post-game coverage, some sound, reaction. They're taking your calls. It's an opportunity to chime into the conversation, engage with what will be the first game of the 2023 NFL season for the San Francisco 49ers. Final segment here on the Kickoff Show coming up next with Evan Giddings and Lorenzo Neal. We're back after this on 95.7 The Game.
I'm Ty Burrell, actor and small business owner. I'm going to show you my steps for making the perfect radio ad. This one's about innovation refunds and the ERC. First step, be relatable. I like pizza and puppies.
Mark on 95.7 The Game. Appreciate you joining us here for the 2-hour show before the NFL season gets started. 49ers and Steelers. So we're just talking about some of the games that we like this week. And to me, Lo, this is one of them. This is one of the marquee matchups and probably the best outside of maybe Cincinnati and Cleveland on the 10 a.m. slate. I believe that there are going to be a lot of eyes locked in to the 49ers and the Steelers because they are two teams in sort of similar scenarios with young quarterbacks, some question marks, but a lot of expected specifically from San Francisco. And so we talked about, the things we like about this game. Right. Number one is number 23. There's Christian McCaffrey.
No question.
But if we're kind of going through the position groups between these two sides, what do you think might get the 49ers in trouble today?
Honestly, I know you talked about the run, and I know JD said, hey, the Steelers are going to run the ball all over them. I'm in another church, different pew. I think it's the secondary. I think that, when you think about the Niners, you think about, okay, they're secondary, and what do they bring to the table? I'm not saying because I like the defensive front. I just think that you're going to have some holes on the secondary. I don't think this is a great covering defense in the secondary. It's going to be predicated on what Nicky Bosa and the rest of those guys can do up front. And don't let Pinkett hold the ball. So you got to get him with pressure because the back end, you can't ask them to cover because I don't think they have a true just lockdown. So to me, it's the secondary.
And I'm kind of with you. I do think that there are more problems in the Pittsburgh secondary than the 49ers.
Sure.
But I am curious to see how Charvarius Ward's injury, if it hampers him at all today, because he's most likely going to be matched up on George Pickens, and that will leave Diamador Lenore on Deontay Johnson. He's probably their biggest yak sort of threat on that offense for Pittsburgh. But how does the 49ers secondary right now, and we're just taking a look at, you just mentioned the two corners, Ward along with Lenore, but how is Talanoa Hufanga in year 3 coming off a first-team All-Pro?
I love
Deshaun Gibson.
Hufanga. He's tough.
But not having a guy like Jimmy Ward, your bulldog anymore, and that leader in the secondary could pose some problems.
It can, and I think that when you think about Talanoa, he's a great guy against the run, but put him in slot. How is that going to do? What are you going to do when they go 3-by-3 or put in 4 wides? Who are you going to put in the slot? So I think that's going to be a problem for the Niners. And you look at him, Ward, he's still good, can cover, do those things. But I think it's a question mark. It's a question mark, and don't think that Pittsburgh's not going to try to exploit it. And don't think that the Niners aren't going to try to exploit their secondary. But both of these teams are expecting one thing, and they're expecting their pass rush, and like we alluded to, the guys up front to be the difference makers because both teams suffer a little bit in the secondary.
In order to neutralize that, and look, they got a brand new defensive coordinator the 49ers doing, Steve Wilks. A big selling point on him this offseason and preseason was that he's going to blitz a lot more. Do you think that might be something that the 49ers deploy in order to try and maybe take some pressure off that back end? Or do you think with Nick Bosa back in the fold, it's just going to be the 4-man rush that we saw primarily from D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh?
I think that when you think about what they're going to try to do, when you do try to blitz a lot, what happens is the middle of the field becomes open. And now you can say, okay, here's my hot read. So you're going to have a lot of side adjustments by the Steelers. If the Niners can't get home with 4 and they have to bring 5 and 6, you compromise the integrity of the secondary because now you look at those holes. If you have a linebacker, usually 6 or 7 guys that are dropping in coverages, now you're going to have some bigger holes because now you're trying to get more pressure. So now guys are going to have hot reads and side adjusts. So that's going to be big. It's going to be loud there. So can you adjust? Are you going to be able to understand what the defense and what the offense is doing? So I think that's why the Niners have to be able to get home with 4, because once you start bringing corners and start bringing safeties, yes, it can work at times, but if you're solid and you slide the line and have some slide protection, and now the quarterback can just say, this is the only place that they can bring pressure because I'm sliding my line to the left. I got lingo, I got a Ringo call, so the whole line is sliding right, and I say, okay, this now, since I'm sliding my line to the right, I know that I'm protected there. So the quarterback doesn't even look there. He's saying, okay, now the pressure's coming right in my face. Where's my window of opportunity? So this is going to be, that's why, Ian, I'm so excited about this chess match between the two coaches.
Absolutely. And look, it's Mike Tomlin, Kyle Shanahan, kind of the more prototypical leader, not a rah-rah guy, but Mike Tomlin has that presence. And Kyle Shanahan has been able to maybe make up for a lack of that with being, whether you want to label him as genius or being a technician, being a guy that can dissect a defense the best arguably in the NFL. And I think that when we're talking about the middle of the field being open low, that is where the 49ers, to me, have the most clear-cut advantage on defense. It would be at the linebacking position because you got, of course, one of the best, if not the best, in Fred Warner. He can do it on the ground. He can also get you in pass coverage. Dre Greenlaw is a big hitter. Meanwhile, on the Pittsburgh side, I'm looking at some guys that Kyle Shanahan is going to try and take advantage of, and that's Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts, guys that I think are good against the run. But when you find yourselves matched up one-on-one with a McCaffrey, with a Debo, with perhaps a Kittle, that's where I think the 49ers can win. And especially if they do it early in downs, I think it'll put Pittsburgh back on their heels. So to me, if we're talking about where the place is for the 49ers to operate in the middle of the field, that's where I think they got to get after it.
You're absolutely right, because if the Steelers try to play too deep, and that means two safeties deep, when you look at the two safeties deep, that means middle of the field is open, and that's when you got Hey Diddle Diddle Kittle down the middle, because now you got him running with the linebacker. And this is what you're going to do, the chess match that you just alluded to. When you're talking about the Steelers inside and their linebackers having to guard necessarily running backs and receivers, how do you do that? And what does that do for the Steelers? What are they going to have to do? Now they got to go with nickel personnel. And that means you take out a linebacker and you add another DB. And then sometimes you got to go with dime. That means you take out two linebackers and you go with, and you have 5 DBs, So that's the mismatch that Kyle Shanahan is going to go with. And then when you say zig, now I'm going to zag. And what does that mean? So if you're going with nickel personnel or dime personnel, look for the Niners to say, we're going to run the ball in this type of front, because they're looking at this mismatch, because McCaffrey's in the backfield and they saying, we can't do that. We got to bring in a safety. So now look at them trying to run the ball. But also what it does too now is you create that one-on matchup with Ayuk and Debo, because now the safety comes down in the box because he's trying to guard McCaffrey, because you know that your linebackers can't. So now you have to bring down the safety and bring in force. And once that happens, you create that one-on-one matchup with Debo and Ayuk. And hey, diddle diddle, I like that matchup. And that's not Kittle down the middle.
And George Kittle is going to be active for this game. I know that he was banged up with an adductor throughout preseason. He is active. He is playing. So is Charvarius Ward. Those are kind of the two biggest question marks entering the morning over here, the afternoon over in Pittsburgh for the 49ers. If we're talking about the running game, because I think they're very different, and as much as I believe Christian McCaffrey is a better overall back, certainly than Najee Harris, Harris is the bruising type that can lean on you. And the addition of Jaylen Warren, who's kind of a small speedster, 5th-round pick for the Steelers this year, I think he adds something, flashed a lot in the preseason. Where would you give the advantage to? I would probably lean towards the 49ers, not necessarily because of their run game and how many yards they're going to chew up on the ground, but because of the versatility of their running back core, I would give them the edge. But the biggest question for the 49ers defensive line is, can they stop the run? The Steelers, meanwhile, to me, their biggest question is, can they win those one-on-one matchups with Ayuk and Debo and Kittle in space?
They have to. They have to be able to win those matchups, and you got to make sure that you got to look at the Niners, and the Niners say, look, we got to stop the run, guys, because now if we're in second and 2 and 2nd and 3, pass rush doesn't mean anything. And so that's what they're going to try to do. The Steelers are going to try to stay ahead of schedule, Ian, by doing that, but saying, look, if we can win on 1st and 2nd down and we're ahead of schedule, now we're in 3rd and 2 and 3, now the pass rush for the Niners become nullified. If the secondary has to come up and make tackles and a safety, and you have to put safety in the box and have to stop the run for the Niners, you're going to be a long day. And now you eat up the guys, and that's ball control. And now your pass rushers on 3rd down and 3rd and long, they don't have the juice that you needed them to have. So it's going to be very imperative that they stop them and be stout in the trenches. And how do you do that? That's about gap control. When you're playing against a big back like Najee, and he wants to lean on you and bruise you, you got to boom. Guys got to hit with your pads. Low man wins. You got to boom, punch with your fist, get underneath them and set a new line of scrimmage, and now keep the outside shoulder free and turn everything in. And that's what guys got, linemen, defensive front. Sometimes guys, they want to go and make the tackle and say, God, I got to beat my guy and go make the tackle. But they don't understand an ace back, an ace block. That means, ace, tight end and tackle. They're acing up. Ace, they're acing up to the linebacker. That's where the defensive front has to be very, very sound to say, look, when they're double teaming me, I understand they want to go put a hat on Fred Warner. But Fred Warner is most effective when he can run free. So now you want that nose guard to grab the center and hold the guard and make sure he keeps his arm in before he won't get called for holding. And you have to hold him because they want to scoop up to the linebacker. And that's where you got to have a set of hard base and be able to, boom, stick them right there. I'm getting fired up, Ian. And they got to make sure that they're stout in there in the middle. So now you're holding the ground. You're holding. Now you got the guard in the center. Right here, hold him. Okay, and now Freddie Warner, now Greenlaw, get downhill and make some tackles. Go hit Najee. That's what you got to do. So this game is going to be physical. It's going to be tough. But those guys in the trenches, you don't got to make all the tackles. You have to do your job and keep those linebackers clean so they can run downhill and make the plays we know they're capable of doing.
This is the kickoff show. We got 15 minutes left until kickoff. That is Lorenzo Neal, undisputable, by the way. Evan Giddings with you here. We're going to be with you for every single road game. Larry Kruger with Lorenzo Neal for every single home game, 2 hours before kickoff, all season long right here on 95.7 The Game. Right after the game, immediately find your way to 95.7 The Game because we got overtime with Mark Grandy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett, all the reaction you could hope for. We're going to get into some of that coach's sound, post-game reaction. Is it a win? Is it a loss? And I want to hear from you on the YouTube and Twitch chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. What are your predictions for the game? And Lo, we were kind of going through who's going to have better games earlier. I gave you mine. I think TJ Watt, because of Nick Bosa's limited play snaps, or just limited snap count because it's his first game back, I think TJ Watt is going to have a better game than Nick Bosa. Who do you think is going to have a better game? TJ Watt, the guy who just got paid the most money by a defensive player in NFL history.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's TJ Watt. I think he's going to have more opportunities. I think that you have to keep Nick Bosa on a pitch count. I think when you think about what's going on and how he just signed, hasn't had full training camp, TJ Watt's been there, but it wouldn't surprise me if Nicky Bosa does some amazing things because that's just what he is. That's why he got paid, that kind of money because they understand the playmaker and defensive player of the year, all the immutables that he brings to the table. But I think that just looking at TJ Watt, his body of work and what he's been able to do during training camp and get more work in. So I think that he's probably going to be more consistent. And that's no slide. That's no, check on Nicky Bosa. It's just because, like you said, he's been there, and he's in better football shape than Nicky Bosa.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As far as the quarterback position, who do you think has a better game, Brock Purdy or Kenny Pickett? Well,
I'll tell you right now, Purdy has to have a better game, or they lose this game. When you're playing against a Steeler team on the road and you're playing in a tough environment, that the fans are there, it's going to be a hostile environment. You want to show, and right now the Steelers want to show that they're worthy and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the NFC and the AFC. They want this game to be, so this game's going to mean something. So it means something every week, but Purdy's going to have to play better. So I'm going to go with Purdy because you want the Niners to win, and I understand he wants to set the record straight and want to show that, hey, this is why he's going to get a contract sooner than later. I think that Purdy is going to have a better game.
This will be the most difficult game for Brock Purdy that he has started and finished because outside of the NFC Championship, I don't believe that there's, number one, a more hostile environment outside of maybe Seattle that he's been in. I don't think there's a tougher defense that he has faced outside of probably Dallas in the NFC divisional round. And I believe, even with those factors playing in, that he can and will have a better game than Kenny Pickett because I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to lean more on their running game than the 49ers are because I believe the Steelers are more vulnerable against the pass. And I think that Brock Purdy, it doesn't mean he's got to be throwing seeds down the field. He's got to be pushing 25, 30-yard passes. He has to be precise. He's got to be accurate. He's got to be efficient. All things that he demonstrated from his first snap taking over Miami for Jimmy Garoppolo that he could do well. So I think that Brock Purdy is going to have a good game, and I'm 100% with you that he needs to if they want to win.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if the 49ers can just line up and run it down the throats of the Pittsburgh Steelers the way the Steelers might try to do that to San Francisco.
Yeah, and I think not just Purdy has an efficient game, but he can't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
This is going to come down, don't turn the ball over and live to fight on another day. That's what makes Purdy, I think, different. I think that's what set him apart from all the quarterbacks that the Niners was on their rosters. He tries to take care of the ball. He'll throw the ball away. He'll turn a bad play. He won't make it worse. He'll say, I'm getting rid of it. I'm just going to throw it around. I'm going to live to fight another day. I think that's going to be very, very imperative. And field position is another key point that they have to do. Make sure you field position because I really believe, in my opinion, if Purdy just stays steady and don't turn the ball over and do the things that's done, I think it's going to come down to special teams. I don't think people put enough onus on special teams. This game, I think both these teams are going to play well, and this game is going to come down to a field goal. This game, so I think special teams is going to play a huge factor in this game, and whoever's going to win this game. I don't think people are talking about the importance of special teams enough, because which team is better on special teams, I think wins this game today, because the hidden field position, the kickoff return, punt team, all those different things. You think about it. If you start on the 40-yard line, you pick up 2 first downs, you're in field goal range. If you don't, now 2 first downs aren't going to beat you in field goal range. Now field position. If you can punt the ball deep, pin a team in, and give them 1 first down, and then you punt the ball, now you got the ball at the 40-yard line. So field position and special teams, to me, is going to be key in this game.
Well, and we're talking about what you kind of look for, the signs of a team you consider legitimate. To me, special teams are a sign of how buttoned up, of how uniform you are as a group. And so we'll see from the 49ers if they are, because I believe the one thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers we can assume is that they will be under Mike Tomlin. From that perspective, though, we heard from John Dickinson earlier about Jake Moody looking solid in pregame, looking solid in warmups. This guy has not made a game-winning kick in his life. He might have to make one today in his first ever NFL game.
You better believe it. I'm not saying it's going to be the game-winning field goal, but those field goals that he missed or if he makes in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, it doesn't have to be at the end of the game, but those add up. He's going to have to play well today, and you got to not just play well, but guess what? If he doesn't play well in what Kyle Shanahan, you don't understand, it affects the psyche not just of the head coach, but of the team. Because now teams are saying, we got to play for a touchdown. We can't play for field position. You see what I'm saying? So now you're looking at a situation, you're on the 30-yard line, and it's 3rd down and 3, and you're saying or it's 4th down. You're either going for it, or you're saying, oh my God, on 3rd down, God, we got to get this first down, or we got to get the end zone because we don't trust our kicker. So now your play calling changes. Now the way that teams, the way that their body and the way that their mindset changes. And last year, I know he was getting older, but you had a guy in goal that you knew, hey, get inside. This is Mr. Automatic. So teams can know that what you're playing for. So that changes too, not just the way you play the game, but the way you call the game.
Well, with just about 5 minutes left in the kickoff show, of course, 10 o'clock, Steelers, 49ers in Pittsburgh, getting underway to begin the 2023 NFL season. Evan Giddings, Lorenzo Neal with you. If we're just looking at the 3 groups, the way I break it down and why I would favor the Niners in this game, I'll give you a score in just a little bit. But I think offensively, I would lean toward the Niners. I think as a group, even though the offensive line gives me pause, they have enough to overcome that. I think Purdy gets the ball out quick enough for them to score enough points to defeat Pittsburgh today. I think defensively, as much as I think that Pittsburgh's pass rush will get to Purdy at points today, I think he has enough gumption to stick through that pressure, and that's why I would give defensively an advantage slightly to the 49ers. But special teams, to me, is clearly on Pittsburgh's side, and so you just hope that this game does not come down to special teams. And as much as we try to poo-poo kind of the third facet of football, it is ultimately important. And so if this game is close, I wonder with the home field advantage and the advantage on special teams if Pittsburgh can walk away with the win. To me, the 49ers, and I think they will find a way to handle Pittsburgh early in this game to get enough of an advantage to play from ahead. That's why I think they win this football game.
Well, my number is simple. And it's 21. The first one to 21 wins. If the Niners score 21, I don't believe that the Steelers offense can score 21. I believe that, the Steelers got a really good defense. But I think that the Steelers offense, to me, is a bigger question mark. I think, like you said, they want to pound the ball. They want to be efficient. They want to run the ball. I don't think that it's meant to score. So with that being said, if the Niners can get to 21, I don't think the Steelers can score 21. So for that reason, if you want me to lean toward the Niners, and if the Niners only score 10, the Steelers win. If the Niners only score 14, I just think the Steelers win. I think it's that number, 20. I don't think that the Steelers can score what the Niners can. So because of that, I got the Niners because they can get to 21.
Well, let's get right to it. Predictions for the game. And I do think 21 is the magic number as well, which is why I believe the 49ers going towards the under will win on the road today against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The final score low, I think, is 21-17. So I think they cover as well.
Yeah, I'm in the same type of numbers. 21, 14, 21, 8, 9, because it may be a safety. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't see it more than 4, but it's definitely 21 is going to win, and I think the Niners get there.
And I think Kyle Shanahan also gives them the advantage just because I think of what he can do against a Pittsburgh defense that has some glaring holes. Defensive line, absolutely a strength. Linebacking core to me is suspect. I think outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick in the secondary, to me, Patrick Peterson is an incredible talent, has had a storied career, might be a Hall of Famer, but at the end of his career, I think they can pick on him a little bit. I also believe that outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick, there's not much on the back end to prevent the 49ers from marching up and down the field.
Yeah, and that's why it's going to be very, very imperative that the guys up front, because when you think about the corners that you talked about, guys, in the Steelers, what they do up front defensively and what they do in the secondary. You talked about a guy who wants to put his hands on me. He plays great within Jenkins. They play great within the 5 to 10 yards. They want to make sure that they play physical. But if you give them time, if you can give Purdy time on certain plays when Kyle Shanahan calls the shots plays, I think that you can get some I think you can get some big plays because of the way the Steelers play defense, like you alluded to. Their corners can't hold up on long plays. That's why it's going to be imperative that they block up front and give Purdy time, because there is going to be some opportunities for Purdy to make some big plays if he have time, because the Steelers secondary, I don't think, can keep up with the Niners receivers.
Well, as much as these last 2 hours have flown by low, we're going to have an opportunity to chop it up every single road game right here on the Kickoff Show. I know you'll be with Larry Krueger for all home games this year. That is Lorenzo Neal. First show in the books. Thank you so much. Dude, this is awesome. I can't wait for football season.
You're the best, Evan. I love it, brother.
Just about 5 minutes away from kickoff between the San Francisco 49ers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, Acrisure Stadium, 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's supposed to be beautiful. A little report, a little nugget from John Dickinson, who's out there live on the ground. About 50-50 Steelers and 49ers fans. So the 49ers fans have traveled well. We hope they can walk away with the win. I believe they will, as will Lo Neal. That'll do it for us here on the Kickoff Show. Make sure to tune into Overtime right after the final whistle. Mark, Randy, Allen, Stiles, Sterling Bennett will get you covered with all your post-game coverage. Coming up next, though, some Fox Sport programming, and then we'll wait for overtime. You've been listening to the Kickoff Show with Evan Giddings and Lorenzo Neal on 95.7 The Game.
Hi, I'm Nabil Ahmed. At East Bay Law Practice, our mission is simple: to secure the best possible outcome for you.